Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the 5th annual National Agenda program at the University of Delaware, sponsored by the Center for Political Communication, the College of Arts and Sciences, the Center for the Study of Diversity, and the Office of the Provost, as well as the William P. Frank Foundation. I'm Lindsay Hoffman, the Director of National Agenda and Associate Director of the Center for Political Communication. This semester, we've been talking about race in America and at UD. We've heard from two of the most prominent faces in the Black Lives Matter movement. You can find that recording at udel.edu/national agenda. We've also heard from an Iranian-American stand-up comedian who told us how he uses humor to diffuse racial tension. And coming up, we have a former St. Louis police officer who is fighting for reform in the criminal justice system. You can see all the details at udel.edu/national agenda. Our film series continues this year, taking place right here in Mitchell Hall next Wednesday. The final film is a week from tonight, and it will feature a Q&A with director Dr. Yasser Payne and one of the researchers featured in the film, Daryl Chambers. This semester at UD, there have been a number of incidents that suggest a real need to have an open dialogue about race. Tonight's event is free and open to the public, like all National Agenda events, to create a space for such dialogue. I encourage audience participation from both the audience here in Mitchell Hall, as well as via social media. Just tweet at the account at UD Race in America to join the discussion. That's at UD Race in America, and you can join the conversation. That should be said, though, that along with the candidness and sincerity that I encourage from this group, civil and respectful dialogue is expected. So, as I've said all semester, and many of you are probably tired of hearing it by now, if you wouldn't stand up in public and say it in public, don't tweet it. And here in Mitchell Hall, know that we're all here to get a better understanding of race in America and on this campus. Be candid, but also be courteous. So tonight, Keith Knight is many things to many people. Former rapper, social activist, father and educator among them. He's also one of the funniest and most highly regarded cartoonists in America and the creator of 3 popular comic strips. For nearly 2 decades, this multi-award-winning artist has brought the funny back to the funny pages with a uniquely personal style that's a cross between Calvin and Hobbes, Mad, and underground comics. Keith Knight is part of a generation of African-American artists who are raised on hip-hop and infuse their work with urgency, edge, humor, satire, politics, and race. His art has appeared in publications worldwide, including The Washington Post, Daily Kos, San Francisco Chronicle, Salon, Ebony. I could go on and on. His comic musings on race have garnered accolades and stirred controversies, prompting CNN to tap him to grade America on its progress concerning issues of race. This year, Knight was recognized as an NAACP history maker. Tonight's presentation is They Shoot Black People, Don't They? A cartoonist look at police brutality in the United States. It's culled from over 20 years of Knight's award-winning work of the unchecked killing of unarmed citizens, and it's designed to provoke constructive civil dialogue among people young and old, left and right, of all colors and orientations. This presentation has been a hit at university campuses in Germany, where it debuted about a year ago in November of 2014. Now his goal is to bring it to all 50 states over the next 2 years, starting with California and Arkansas earlier this year. Now that he is in the first state, please join me in welcoming Keith Knight to the University of Delaware.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say that this slideshow is going to depress all of you. And so I just want to warn you right now. And I'd like to thank the police officer who's watching my books right now. I saw you work your magic on those 2 students who grabbed my books. Excellent. So my name's Keith Knight. I am a gentleman cartoonist. Is this? Okay, reverb's gone, good. And I draw cartoons, and pretty much most likely you've never heard of me, and I'm going to show you why. It always amazes me the way people react when they first enter my bedroom. Holy smokes, what the hell are you doing with that blow-up doll? Folks are often surprised to find a feel-me-up Wilbur doll in my bedroom, although I don't know why. Tickle Me Elmo may be the #1 doll for America as a whole, but Feel Me Up Wilbur has been selling like hotcakes in the Black community. They come in quite handy, although not for the use the manufacturer had originally intended. Taxi, and he's thinking, black man equals stabbed in back, off duty, off duty. But wait, look, black man plus white guy equals okie dokie. Get the hell in here, boys. You see, because 5 black men standing on a corner without Wilbur is a gang. But 5 black men standing on a corner with Wilbur is a basketball team with a coach. They're banned in Boston, so I bought a few to send to my friends back east. Oh my God, look, it's Hootie and the Blowfish. So this is what I do. I do autobiographical cartoons, and what I like to do is poke at, I guess, the hornet's nest of race in America with my comics. And I like to kind of slide them in very cleverly. This is another one of my favorite ones. Since tying the knot a year and a half ago, a lot of readers have been asking me this question. Has this once macho he-master gone all soft now that I'm a married man? The answer is yes, I've gone all soft and supple. It's true, the best thing about getting hitched is being able to use all your wife's girly products in the bathroom. Stuff I wouldn't be caught dead buying in public. Okay, let's see, we got some anti-crab ointment, anal wart remover, and a peach melba loofah scrub. Shh, not so loud with the loofah scrub. That's right, people, no more scrubbing the nether regions with lava soap for me. We've got rosemary and aloe vera and eucalyptus leaves infused with hibiscus shampoo, organic sea kelp and lamb semen exfoliating wash, colloidal oatmeal and placenta enema. Honestly, y'all, using this stuff does make a difference. A lot of folks have been noticing, gee, your skin feels terrific. So, so the reason why you don't see my strip a lot of places is newspapers won't run it. Mainly because of I run a little blue with my autobiographical comic strip. But it's akin to you meeting me in a bar and I'm telling you these stories and you're not quite sure whether to believe them or not. I like to comment in a very casual manner about different issues, and I really have a lot of fun with it. I started in the alternative weekly industry. Unfortunately, alternative weeklies barely exist anymore. In fact, the only thing that's saving alternative weeklies is marijuana. I just did the slideshow in Denver, and Denver's alternative weekly is this thick, and half of it is marijuana ads. So, that could be it. Once marijuana is legalized, alternative weeklies will exist. Anyway, when I first started out, the only time I'd get work is February, Black History Month. I'd only get calls from editors wanting me to do Black History cartoons. And so I would gladly take the work, and I would do the work. I would do it quickly and promptly, try to do the best that I could do, get it in early. I'd wait to get the check. I would cash the check, and then I would write or call them back and say, I worked the other 11 months too. And eventually that broke through to them, and I started doing it all year long. So I was really psyched about that. I came up with the K Chronicles as an answer. It started in the early 90s. It's been around for about 20 plus years. And I started it because I wasn't seeing myself represented in the media, which was a young black male who was into hip hop, who wasn't a hoodlum. There are hip hop fans out there that are smart, and there are hip hop fans that like other music. There are hip hop fans that are into geeky, nerdy stuff. So it was very important to represent that. And so that's how the K Chronicles came came about. And from there, I started getting some really great emails from people saying, oh man, this is great. Wow, I've never seen this before. This is great. The one email, type of email that really kind of, it's the only email, the only person that identifies themselves by race is are white males. When they write to me, they always say, I'm a 53-year-old white male. And it's only 53-year-old white males. They write to me and go, I'm a 53-year-old white male, and I can't believe that you do my favorite comic strip. And I would always write back to them and say, you know, Star Wars is my favorite movie, and it was done by a 53-year-old white male. So why is it such a surprise that it's, you know, I can be your favorite cartoonist? And they would never write back. But what I wanted to say is, you know, you can relate to the work done by someone who doesn't look like you. It's actually out there. I can relate to Luke Skywalker. I actually have an Uncle Owen, and that's it. But pretty much, but I have an Uncle Owen, which is more than most people have. I started getting the strip in different newspapers and stuff, and then I was asked by a black website called Africana.com to do another strip for them, and they wanted it similar to the K Chronicles, and I said, I want to do something completely different. Instead of autobiographical, I want to do something straight from the news. Instead of a multi-panel, I want to do a single panel. And so I came up with Think. This is the last collection, the latest collection of Think cartoons. And it's got the Yes We Can cartoon on the front there. But I'm just going to run through these single panels really quick. What I like about Think is I'm able to take certain ideas and that I can't flesh out into K Chronicles and do these sort of shots to the gut. This is the very first Think cartoon. Denny's, serving black since 1997, if signs told the truth. I literally drew this on a bar napkin when I went into the meeting and said, this is what I want to do. And you know, this makes reference to the lawsuit that was brought against Denny's by, I think it was 4 black Secret Servicemen who wouldn't get served. It was going on in Denny's all across the country, where blacks were being asked to pay up front, they were being served last, ahead, even though they were ahead of people, like all these different things. But it wasn't until these Secret Servicemen brought the lawsuit, and then everyone jumped on, because, I mean, it was happening all over the place. I made this into a sticker, and in the Bay Area, these Denny's workers would always come by and buy them, and they'd stick them up in their break room, and the manager got really mad. In a bold move, Microsoft and Apple have stepped up their rivalry by becoming the official computers of the Bloods and the Crips, respectively. Think different. This just in, police have just released the description of the alleged gunman who's been terrorizing the downtown area. Please don't let it be a black guy. Please don't let it be a Middle Eastern guy. Ha, they'll never catch me. Ah, the power of white privilege. White privilege is you never have to worry when a white guy blows up something or shoots up something. That you'll never have to worry about being a suspect and being rounded up, all the white men being rounded up and hassled by the cops. You never have to worry about that. That's called white privilege. The latest controversial extreme sporting event, the Cell Phone 500. Can you hear me now? Your sister had a baby, it's a boy. The exact moment radical black activist Thomas X realized that, yes indeed, he was an Uncle Tom. Come on, that's good stuff. The Penis Monologues with Wilt Chamberlain, Jimi Hendrix, and Milton Berle. How was it? Way, way too long. I did a lot of research for that one. You're doing this because I'm black, aren't you? Oh, now, see, why do you always have to play the race card? Oh, yeah, so, the laughs usually stop here. I know what happened. I know what you did last summer. No, I know about the story that happened on campus here. When this strip ran, I had students protesting the running of this strip in the newspaper at Slippery Rock University in Western Pennsylvania. And they protested by wearing nooses around their neck. And I felt really bad because they were vilified online as saying, don't you get this? Like, this cartoon is on your side. But they were more reacting to the climate on campus. And it sounds very similar to, I think, what the president had held here a few months ago, where the students sort of aired their experience of being on campus here. And they flew me into Slippery Rock University, and I sat down with the students who protested, and they told me, exactly what I had thought, which is just their experience on campus was so harsh, and like just seeing that cartoon sort of kind of just was the straw that broke the camel's back. And they talked about how on campus, like someone called up and said they were going to start shooting black students on campus the next morning. And so they called up security saying, like, I do not feel safe on this campus. And they really felt like they weren't taken seriously. And then they commented to me that they said that there were 33 unregistered hate groups within a 25-mile radius of the campus. And my first thought was, like, who registers a hate group in the first place? Like, is there a registry for hate groups? And, but just, I can't imagine what it's like to like, I go to some of these campuses and I'm just like, oh my God, like I was in Salem, Massachusetts, and I felt like out of my element. And I was just like 25 minutes from where I lived. So to be out on a campus where someone threatens to start shooting black students, like, and then I did Arizona, and they were having blackface parties in the fraternities. Like, that is completely absurd and crazy. And I really think that the reactions to my strips, these ones that ran, it just made me, it fueled me, and saying like, wow, like no one's really tackling this stuff. I'm gonna do more of them. And I just basically became known as that guy who does the race strips. And I'm very proud of it, because I think it causes us to have this awkward conversation that no one wants to have. But if we are going to talk about race, this is my one pet peeve. One night at ye old gallery opening, frankly, I don't care if a person is black, white, green, purple, or brown. Me too. Who the heck are all these green and purple folks white people are always talking about? The K Chronicles by Keith Knight. I'm sorry, I can consider myself relatively open-minded, but I have to draw the line at purple people. I know this ain't PC, but purple people are nothing but barely civilized knuckle-draggers. Believe me, I know. I sat next to one in second grade. When I was growing up, a purple family moved in next door, and the whole neighborhood started to smell like Fig Newtons. And I swear this one guy was hired at my job just because he was, well, you know. I heard green folks have 3 nipples. I think I'd better be going. Me too. Be careful walking back to your car. The purple people might get you. So yeah, this is my thing. Like, we cannot have a serious, honest talk about race if you're going to talk about green and purple and blue people. And unless Avatar is a documentary, they just don't exist. And I guarantee you that if a purple or green person came in here right now and sat down behind you, you'd be scared shitless. So let's start talking realistically about this stuff, shall we? So in 2008, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I launched The Nightlife, which is a daily version of my comic strip. And basically, a syndicate's been bothering me for years. Why don't you do a daily? Why don't you do a daily? And it's like, I want a life. I want a life. But then I had my first kid, and I said, I need some money. So I did the worst thing I could possibly do, which is launch this. 2008 is when the financial thing dropped, and like all these newspapers went out of business. So it was really stupid. And what happens is once you start doing it, like it's like you're a junkie. You can't stop doing it. So now I do 9 strips a week, and it's a nightmare. And I get paid like it's a part-time job. That's like the real pathetic thing about it. But it did give me a way to sort of comment on the Daily Comics page in a whole new audience. Like usually I would get emails from people who read Alternative Weekly, so they were like, you know, a little funky, a little sleazy. But now I get you know, people writing me from the military and from stuff like that, and it's really interesting. Do you think extraterrestrials are racist? Why do you ask? They never abduct people of color. It's easier to catch white people at night. So this is the first daily strip I got called a racist for. Like, this dude is like, I can't believe they let this racist have a daily strip. But what I like about my readers is how smart, how intelligent they are. And they sent me, they all sent me emails schooling me on this. The first couple that got abducted by aliens, I think in the 50s, was actually a mixed race couple. It was a black husband and a white wife. But I still think they got caught because of the white wife. Speaking of white wives, my wife is German. And what's great about her character is I'm able to kind of observe America from an outsider's perspective. And I always have like a patriotic woman who's trying to like get her kicked out as an immigrant. And our babies are called anchor babies and stuff. Like I'm able to comment on all these different things. But she has a really kind of wide-eyed, innocent look to the world. But this is one with her. Hey, look, a message in a bottle. How cool is that? I've been wanting to find one of these my whole life. It even has a cork. No. This was the internet before there was an internet. Hurry up and read it. Dear sir, madam, I have the privilege to request your assistance to transfer the sum of $47 million into your account. I'm sorry, I lost one of those slides. I don't know what happened, but you get the joke. So I run with the Daily Strip in a lot of different daily newspapers, including the San Francisco Chronicle and the San Diego Union Tribune. And the San Diego Union Tribune, San Diego is a big military town. And this next strip is a strip that really affected a lot of people. Vet mentoring. A guy in my unit smothered an IED, took one for the team. When I got home, I went to tell his loved ones what kind of sacrifice he made. Turns out he was gay. I was the first one to let his partner know what happened. I've shared things with soldiers that I'd never tell family and friends. War does that. Here was a guy who gave his life for his fellow soldiers, but wasn't allowed to share with us who was waiting for him back home. If we're not fighting for this soldier's freedom, then what are we fighting for? So this strip, I started getting all these emails from people in San Diego, and they're saying, like, I've been in the military for a certain amount of, is this just bad? No? I've been in the military for years and blah, 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 and, like, this strip changed my mind on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Like, I got tons of emails like that, and you know, you never in your wildest dreams that you'd think you would change somebody's thinking on something, but it really is nice to know that something like that can happen. And I'll tell you this, my Sunday strip also runs in the Washington Post. And this is our president in the Oval Office, and on his desk, right by his hand, is the Sunday Comics. My strip ran in June of that year, a couple of years ago, and in the fall, he repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now, I'm not saying that my strip had anything to do with it, but the evidence is clear that he read my comic strip. So I just want to say that. After 10, 15 years of living in San Francisco, I think it was 10 years, in 1999, I was standing at my local bus stop in my neighborhood, and I was hanging up posters for my band, my rap band, the Marginal Prophets. And I was hanging up this poster A police car comes speeding up the hill and skids out in front of me across traffic. Cop jumps out and says, "What are you doing here?" And the first thing I thought of was I had this black silver stapler in my hand, and I just said, "I am hanging up posters. This is a stapler, and I'm going to put it down." And then he starts getting on his radio, and I said, "What's this about?" He said, "Well, we have word that someone is robbing houses in your neighborhood, and you fit the description." I said, "What's the description?" He said, "A 6-foot-tall black male." I said, "Anything else?" He said, "No." And then he got back on the radio. Now, at this time, I had dreads, like crazy dreads. I looked like Sideshow Bob, actually. But you could have easily described me. And I said, "Well, 6-foot-tall black man, that's like every black man." And he said, "Please be quiet." And he's on the radio, and you see from 3 different directions, like cops, like speeding like crazy, flashing and going crazy, coming towards me. And I'm like, wow, this is it. Like, this is the thing that I've been writing about, and it's happening to me, like, right now. And so I really wanted to take the time out to look at it from a different perspective, because I had always been looking at this going down. And so it was really interesting to try to, just look at people on the buses going by, people in cars. You try to catch people's eyes. They'd look away really quick. You couldn't tell whether they were afraid or whether they were ashamed or whether it was really an interesting and eerie perspective to have. But what was most surprising to me was a muni bus turned and headed down the street from the top of the street. And my white roommate was on there. And he said that as the bus turned around, he looked down and saw all these cop cars around. And he's like, all right, there's another black man being hassled. And as he got closer, he was like, wait a second, that's my black man. And he started, he said, it was amazing to me. I saw this bus stop, and the bus rolls away. There's 4 cops around me, and my little white roommate comes bounding across the street, red-faced, screaming bloody hell, like saying, "What the fuck, what the," just going nuts. And right there, right then, I saw what white privilege was, because the cops turned around and said, "It's okay, man, it's cool, take it easy," and if he was a black man or anybody of color, he would have been tased, he would have been beaten, it was completely insane. I was trying to calm him down. I was like, dang it, take it easy, take it easy. By that time, one of the cops had recognized me from the neighborhood, and he was like, he made this face like, sorry about this. It turned out that the guy who stopped me was a rookie cop from a completely different neighborhood. And when he heard that on the radio, he was like, I'm going to be hero cop, and I'm going to just go and find the first black man I see, and I'm just going to stop him. And I sit there and think, it was diffused at a point, and, the cop I knew gave me a ride, and I got to yell at him for 20 minutes. But if it had gone wrong, and people were shot, people have been shot for far less. I had something that actually looked like a gun. If I had been shot, I could picture the first thing that would happen, which was I would be, a rapper was hanging out, and he had something in his hand, and I'm sure that they would have found marijuana residue. They would have said that I had smoked marijuana at some point in time. And just a number of different things that I could have, and I would be immediately dismissed as well, he probably had it coming to him because he was out there with this and doing that, and he probably rapped about mean stuff about cops and everything. But here's the thing. No one who's been killed by cops. None of these folks deserve to die, whether they were selling cigarettes, whether they were playing with a toy gun, whether you're speeding, whether you're smoking marijuana, whether you're selling marijuana. You do not deserve to die while you're being arrested. You don't. You don't. And what I want to do with the slideshow is to make the point that I should be treated like everybody else gets treated. So, I was doing a strip about Ferguson last summer, and I basically saw this picture. And her sentiment is my sentiment. Is like, I cannot believe I still have to test this shit. I've been doing police brutality cartoons for 20 years, and every time I do one, I'm like, is this the last one I'm gonna do? Is this it? Can I finally stop doing it? And of course, it's never the last one that I'm gonna do. So when I saw her face, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put together a slideshow of my cartoons, and I'm gonna see if any colleges would be interested in this. Now, here's the thing. When I put it out there, no U.S. colleges responded. The first place that responded was Germany. I don't know why. But it's really interesting, and it wasn't till I put it out that Germany put together a tour of my stuff that U.S. colleges started calling. So it was really interesting. But I started to put it together. A lot of my police brutality cartoons. This is one I did in, I think, 2000 and, no, not 2006, I think like 1999. Really? Oh, you know better than me. But what do you see in this picture? Son, brothers, fathers, human beings, target practice. This is one I did after Oscar Grant was shot and killed by a guy who said he thought he had his taser. And it was just about the time that the white kid in college was like getting tased. Have you ever seen that viral video? He was like, don't tase me, bro, don't tase me. And I just, thought like, Oscar Grant, wish he was tased like you were. This is one of my favorite ones here. Mr. White Police Officer, how many shots does it take for 4 white officers to defend themselves against one unarmed black male? A black male, well, let's see. Blam, 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 blam. 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 Now, if you look up there in the lower right-hand corner, the character is looking at her watch. That's a little thing that cartoonists do to make it seem like time is going by. Blam, 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 blam. Blam, 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 blam. 41. Don't you think that was a little excessive? Listen, you people could avoid getting into these situations if you would just lighten up. This is dedicated to Amadou Diallo. And Amadou Diallo was an immigrant who lived in New York who was shot in his vestibule by 4 undercover police officers. And what they did is what they did with Rodney King, too, a decade before, which is they take the trial that they're on and they move it to the whitest part of the state, and then they find them innocent, and then they say, oh, that's fair. And I don't know, like, I can't recall of any other situation other than when white cops beat up or kill black people where, like, they actually moved the trial. You're familiar with the Boston Marathon bombing? If there is a trial if there's one trial where the guy probably won't get a fair shake in the area, it's probably that dude. And they didn't move that. And you just wonder, like, why would they move these type of things, If anything, shouldn't the community, like, have a little bit of insight into sort of the experience of what they have in cops in their community? This is another one of my favorite ones. And this is the firing range where police officers do target practice. How come all the targets are black? What do you mean? They're silhouettes. They're supposed to be black. I'm talking about the afro and the FUBU logo across the chest. Well, I'll be. If you look up there in the right on the silhouette, what he has in his hand is a basketball. Now, some people think that looks more like a watermelon, and it works either way. What happens when a white guy invites 5 black men into his home for a complete fashion and lifestyle overhaul? The funkiest show on cable, Black Eye for the White Guy, a K Chronicles funny by Keith Knight. Now, this was based on a show called Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. It was a show in the 2000s. It was in the aughts, and it was about 5 gay men barging into a straight guy's apartment and doing an overhaul. And I used to sit there and go, wow, what if black men did that? So this is that strip. Double over in hilarity as our team of slick style specialists mock their clients' tastes and sensibilities. Languish in laughter as the unexpected happens. Hello, 911. A gang of black men have taken over the apartment next door. Snicker uncontrollably as our hosts are confronted by the local cops. Police, come on out with your hands up. Snort loudly as the cops use overtly excessive force to remedy this situation. We're shooting a TV show. What did they just say? They said they're shooting something. Well, fire back. Sit passively in tacit approval as a jury watches the video over and over and still acquits the cops. We'd like to thank the jury for letting us do our job. So, both this strip and the other strip right before it, I did the other strip before it in 2008 and this in 2003. And, I make these jokes about this stuff, but the joke about the silhouettes was a joke until earlier this year. There was a woman in the military who was going to do target practice at the local police station. And she went in there, and what she saw for the targets, she saw that the police were using photos of black teenagers. And one of the black teenagers was her brother as a teenager. And the cops, in defense, they said, oh, it's legal. That's not illegal. That was their excuse. And so when you see stuff that you think is completely outrageous and a joke, and it's really happening, we have a serious problem. We have certain police officers who see me as a target, as someone to take a shot at. And I have a real problem with that. I am a father, I am a son, I am a cartoonist. I guess not everybody's a cartoonist, but I pay taxes. I should be treated similar to everybody here. So, why is it like this? What is the reason why? Well, 70% of Hollywood films depict firearms, with manufacturers paying handsomely to have their products featured. How's my close-up? I think America's gun culture, contributes to it. I think a lot of cops are really paranoid that, and maybe justifiably paranoid that some people or lots of people are carrying guns. I would love to see cops come out against guns, or at least have some decent gun control legislation. I don't think we'll be able to get rid of guns, but I think we can put in some common sense registration in legislation. You ever see that viral video with the gun owner who sits there and says, I can sell this gun to anybody I want and it's not regulated? What's great about it is he's a responsible gun owner, and he just points out the fact that all these crazy gun things are generally from people who aren't registered gun owners. They're not the responsible ones. And he just says it's time for gun owners to stand up and say, let's put in some regulation here, because they're not going to come and take our guns, but we got to keep guns from me being able to sell it off of Craigslist. The next thing is the militarization of the police department. Are you familiar? There's a certain law that when the military has too much stuff, They can send it to police departments across the U.S., and they'll stop sending it if the police department doesn't put it to use. So basically, you got cops using some really crazy stuff, and when you bring stuff like this to some sort of protest, it's really going to start something, you know? It's sort of crazy. And gosh, you know, I think the drug war has a lot to do with it. This is Washingtonians who admitted smoking marijuana in 2007. 12.2% blacks and 10.5% whites. And this is 2007 marijuana possession rates. Blacks 91% and whites 8%. Now, it's not because black people just like flaunt their joints and run around with bongs in their hands and everything. This is one of those selective laws that cops can sort of pursue, and if they stop enough people, then they'll find stuff going on with them. And the LA Times did a really great article on jaywalking, on who gets stopped for jaywalking, and they focused in on this Latino college student who was just struggling to pay for college, and he gets hit with a $158 jaywalking ticket. And he said at the same time, walking across the street is like this very successful businessman who's in a suit, white guy in a suit, and clearly could afford a $158 ticket, but he's not the one who gets stopped. It's this kid who gets stopped, and it basically follows him as he struggles to pay his college and pay these fines. And it's similar to basically the Department of Justice's report on Ferguson, that the police nickel and dime the black community with jaywalking fines and loitering fines and smoking and all this different stuff, to the point where they get wrapped up in this continual paying of fines. And if they don't pay it on time, it goes up and up, and they have to pay more money, and then they have to go to court, and they lose their job because they have to be in court, and then they go to jail because they can't pay for certain things. And it happens all across the country. How many people have read the Department of Justice report? Yeah, barely anybody, because it's a lot of like long government speak. And so, like, take a look at, there's some places that sort of make a short version of it, but if you see it, you'll be like, wow, okay, that's really fucked up. And so, like, that's the type of stuff that needs to change. And that's the type of stuff that's institutional. That's institutional racism. So when people sit there and go, well, racism doesn't exist, I don't see anyone calling you anything. It's not about someone calling me something. It's about it's about stuff like this. It's about not being able to get a loan. It's about my dad who had trouble finding a house for us to live because there were these unwritten tenants not to sell to black people in certain parts of town. Those are the type of things that need to change, and that they're there, but they're not there. And the craziest thing is there's been an uptick in crime recently, but still crime has gone down like super, like as low as it's been since the 60s. And our rate of incarceration has continued to rise. And it's just starting to change now. But I think a lot of it has to do with, again, race. The New York Times just did an article saying that a lot of white families are really starting to question the drug war, basically because it's a majority of white people are getting hooked on heroin from all the prescription drugs, and because their kids are going into jail, they're starting to say, like, we need to change these laws. And it's been a long time coming. It's been asked for a long time about these laws being changed, but it really took white families starting to talk about it and experience it for them, for the government to start to think about changing it. But it's crazy. It's insane. One of the finest police officers this country's ever had was the former San Jose police chief. His name was, I think, John McNamara. Is it McNamara? He just died a few years ago, and he was the only U.S. police chief to come out against the Rodney King beating in 1992, the only U.S. police chief. And because of that, the Fraternal Order of the Police demanded that he resign. So he resigned after that and became a writer. But here was a guy who is from a police family. He's been policing since the 1950s in New York. And he had problems even in the 1950s when they used to arrest jazz musicians for marijuana possession. He would say, why are we doing this? Like, why, what is going on? And he just basically said, it's a vestige of Jim Crow. He basically said that since they were getting rid of Jim Crow laws, that this drug war was a way to enforce and put black men in prison, just take them off the street. And when you put a black man in prison, he's done. Statistically speaking, it's easier for a white male with a record to get a job, easier than a black male without a record. So when you put a black man in jail, he's done. He gets, there's no way he can get a job. Like, literally, he already has a hard time getting it. And, you get your votes taken away from you. You get so many rights taken away from you. It's completely insane. I lived in LA for 8 years, and this happened down the street from my house. This law officer was trying to prevent this grandmother from going up on the 10 freeway. He did this by taking her down and giving her haymakers. The woman is, I think, schizophrenic. The only reason why he lost his job is someone driving in a car took out his cell phone and took some video of it. Otherwise, it would have never happened. If no one had any evidence of this, they would have went to court, and he would have, it's his word against hers, and it would have never happened. So I just tell people, cell phones, it doesn't always work, but having a cell phone is like our biggest. I don't want to call it a weapon, but it's something that we need to have going all the time. Now they're trying to pass laws saying you can't film police, which is crazy. It's insane. The Justice Policy Institute estimates that more than 5,000 people in the U.S. have been killed by police over the past decade, far exceeding those killed by terrorists during the same span. And it's interesting because the last time I did this, there was a son of a police officer here, and he said, there's more police that are killed in the line of duty than police killing people. And I said, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. I said, well, look that up. If you look that up and you have that fact, come on up here and you can show it to me. So he started looking it up, and then he quietly left the room. There's about, I think, in 2013, I think there was like 129 police officers that were killed, and most of them were killed by accident, like these accidents, not by someone with a gun taking them out. And I think there were just over 1,000 people that were killed in the line by police. Now, some of them were justified, but some of them weren't. And someone wrote about it. There have been 1,000 people who have been killed this year so far by police, and no cop has been convicted of any wrongdoing. Nobody is that good at their job. There is no statistic where that happens 1,000 times and it's all legitimate. Like, there's nobody who does that job that good. It's crazy. So this is another strip that sort of caused a little controversy. A cruel joke to play on a black jogger. Thief! And then cops show up and take him out. Now, when this ran, I got a call from my editor saying, there's a lot of people who are calling and saying this is a racist comic strip. And I said, really? And I said, who's calling and saying that? And they're saying, it's white people. I said, that doesn't surprise me, because black people would not look at this strip and say, that's racist. Black people would look at that strip and say, That is depicting something that is racist. And I said to the editor, you tell the people who are calling that if you complained as much about police brutality, about the reality of that, instead of a cartoon depicting it, there might be some change. And this is what I tell people about all the time. Hip hop had talked about this stuff in 1992, 93. They were calling it long before anybody else was, but it was just being dismissed as a bunch of hoodlums and stuff. But it's a double-edged sword, you know? It's like, I would walk, I had an incident with a cop where I walked up to it, there was something going on down the street, and there were two cops there, and I walked up and I said, hey, what's going on down the street? And one of them turns to me and says, none of your fucking business. The other cop turns to him and says, why did you have to say that? And I'll always remember that second cop for just saying, like, why did you have to say that? Because he is making it hard for every other good cop to deal with the public, because there are all these and people tell me all the time, it's just a couple of bad apples. And if that's true, if it's just a couple of bad apples, and I'm open to that, if there are just a couple of bad apples, it should be real easy to clean up the police department. Should be real easy. So now there's this asshole, and we're getting close to the end. Believe me, it uplifts at the end. So this is George Zimmerman, murderer and clairvoyant. He's not a cop, but he is a wannabe cop. He wanted to be a cop, but it didn't work out for him. And but you know, he got to play cop and be a neighborhood patrol and take out a kid. And we see now with his behavior, like, that he should be in jail. He should be in jail. And just the fact that he got away with it sort of sparked this little sort of renaissance of, like, people taking people out. Because right after that, there was a guy who shot up a bunch of kids, their car, because they were playing music loud. Do you remember that? And I think he thought he could get away with it, so he shot up the car, and he's in jail. And then there was a girl who got into an accident who was 17, and she went knocking on this guy's door outside of Detroit looking for help, and the guy shot her and killed her through the door. I can't remember what his name was, but just a brief moment, I think people were like, oh, shoot, like, you know, you could be George Zimmerman and kill black people? No problem. But it stopped. Thankfully, it stopped. But now we just have to move to the people in the uniform. Speaking of uniforms, guys in uniforms, these are three brothers from Wisconsin. They're in high school, and they were getting their picture taken for the local newspaper. And so what they did was they made these 3-point signals. You ever watch basketball and they shoot and they get it in and they go like they do a 3-point signal? So these guys did that. And then it ran in the paper, and the police department said, those guys are giving gang signs. And they told the school, those guys are giving gang signs. So the school suspended them, and they couldn't play basketball. So social media reacted by posting a lot of Wisconsin college basketball players, white basketball players, doing the same thing. And it sort of went around all over the place. And I did what is probably my most popular comic strip that I've ever done. How to discern an innocent hand gesture from a gang sign. It's really subtle, so look closely. Peace. Vice City Vagrants. 3-point signal. Tri-City Bloods. Okie dokie. Oaktown Crips. Rock on, bro. West Side Ballers. Misguided Youth, and Thug. So this went everywhere, and it prompted me getting my most favorite piece of hate mail that I've ever received. And so I'm going to read just a little bit of my hate mail for you. I notice you have used the word discern in your subtle drawings. That is a biblical word reference and term. You have used it out of content. I dare you. God is no respecter of persons. Judge not, lest ye be judged. You are very disrespectful.
And yes, I did take a closer look at you. Your heart is evil, wicked, and corrupt, with hate, prejudice, and discrimination. Try throwing up the cross. It's the only way to save your soul. Its color is red for the blood of Jesus. Currently, you yourself are in a gang, probably ugly, a Mormon, and gay, with an extremely small penis. And there is a space in hell being reserved for people like you.
So I was really happy to receive this, and I posted it on my site. I was joyous, and I wrote to them, and they thanked them for their hate mail. So 10 months later, for some reason, my strip went viral again, and I was wondering why. And it turned out that this mayor outside of Minneapolis was doing like a clean up the community program, and she took a picture with a kid, I guess, who was a former gang member who's now a community volunteer, and they took this picture of them pointing at each other, and the local news thing said, the mayor flashing gang signs with gang members, and they interviewed the local police department saying she is putting at risk the lives of every police officer in this city. And it was completely outrageous, like outrageously blown out of proportion. So another great thing, social media started posting photos of people doing gang signs. And this one's my favorite one. And then her husband posted this on Twitter. I love social media. You have the right to remain silent. I have the right to get paid leave while my police chief figures out how to spin what just happened. You have the right to expire while I call my union rep to find out what I should do next. I have the right to be investigated by people I work with. You have the right to be disparaged posthumously in the media for doing stuff nobody should die for. I have the right to reap a ton of cash from a GoFundMe page set up for me by people I'm a little creeped out by, but I'll take it. So how can we change this? How can we move forward? I have a couple of suggestions. One is, let us praise the police who do right. And there are plenty of police who do right. You know, there's some stories about how cops are sometimes passing out like tickets for, being nice in the community. I think we should do that back to cops. When a cop is nice, like that cop that was dancing with that girl in that video, have you seen that? Those type of cops should be praised because they're doing infinite amounts of good things for the community. But the other thing is, again, like totally, we should know our rights. We should film everything that's going on. I used to sit there and watch Cops when I was younger, and I'd say, these cops are the nicest people I've ever seen cops. Like I always used to say, there should be a film crew with every cop and just like have cop channels, like tons of cop channels, because they seem to act really nice when there's a camera there. And I think it's also been known that people act nicer when there's a video there. Like, not just cops, but people act nice. So I think everybody should be on camera all the time, but not surveillance, but like, just having phones and all that stuff. Anyway, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said some really cool stuff, and I just wanted to show this. The LA Times referred to the New York City protests as anti-police marches, which is grossly inaccurate and illustrates the problem of perception the protesters are battling. The marches are meant to raise awareness of double standards, lack of adequate police candidate screening, and insufficient training that have resulted in unnecessary killings. Police are not under attack. Institutionalized racism is. Trying to remove sexually abusive priests is not an attack on Catholicism, nor is removing ineffective teachers an attack on education. Bad apples, bad training, and bad officials who blindly protect them are the enemy. And any institution worth saving should want to eliminate them too. So, I want to see the police sit there and say, yes, let's get rid of the bad apples. Let's consciously get rid of them. And when I see efforts like that, when I see cops held responsible, you know? This cop in South Carolina that shot the dude in the back and then put a taser next to him, like if he doesn't go, like no one is ever gonna go. But what would have happened if that video wasn't there? Like that's the thing that drives me crazy. Like we shouldn't have to have a video like to make these claims that we want justice for something. Because cops will not change if they're not held accountable. And I don't mean held accountable like you're fired. Like if this cop doesn't go to jail who killed this guy in cold blood, then there is an issue. Because getting fired means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. Like I would love to see, you know what would really make the institution change is if instead of taxpayers paying out families, like we're gonna admit no wrongdoing, but we're gonna give you $2 million for killing your son. I would like to see a precinct get hit pension-wise. If one of them screws up, then they all get a little ding. That way, everyone looks out for each other, you know? Right now, if a cop reports police brutality, they're ostracized, they're mistreated, they end up being driven from their job. There's plenty of stories about that, and it drives me crazy. It usually takes a former police officer they have to be out of their job for them to really examine it. But you can't be a cop and say, hey, like this isn't right, because you get ostracized, and it's a shame. It drives, My uncle was a police captain in New Jersey, and he said his biggest regret was he put generations of young men in jail, destroyed their lives because they found a roach in their car. Like, now that marijuana is being legalized, he's like, I just destroyed, like, people's families and stuff like that. No, that doesn't have anything to do with police brutality, but it's part of the institution that has some real issues. You know, jails shouldn't be businesses. Jails should be for rehabilitation. This is the last strip that I'll do. This is a tale of 2 viral emails. One is about a bumper sticker. The other is about a kid that looks like me. Racism in America is like that big pile of dog poop that sits on the grass in front of your apartment building. It's been there for as long as you can remember, and nobody knows how it got there. Nobody wants it there, yet no one wants to clean it up. They say, why should I? I didn't leave it there. Soon you just accept it. You do your best to avoid and or ignore it. It's that pile of poop that allows someone like Trayvon Martin to be murdered while his killer walks. The flies that are attracted to that poop are the people who put "Don't renege" bumper stickers on their vehicles. I don't care about the flies, just clean up the shit. I'll end with this quote, and it's by Sean King. He says, listen, if you ever wondered what you would do if you were alive in the civil rights movement, now is the time to find out. Now, right now. This is it. Like, this is that window where it's happening right in front of us. And years from now, people are going to say, well, were you a part of that? Did you help change? And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, I was on the front lines, rioting, doing all this stuff. No. But we have an opportunity here. And I want to call out everybody in this room, because you don't realize the power that you have. Bill Cosby has been doing pretty heinous things for a long time. And there have been a lot of women who've spoken up about it. And nothing was ever really done. It took Hannibal Buress, a black male comedian, to bring it up during a comedy set, and then suddenly it's on everyone's radar. As a male, that's male privilege for all these women not to be listened to. And then Hannibal Buress
calls him out, and then suddenly he's getting his awards taken away from him or whatever, his honorary degrees. That is an example of male privilege. It's not right that tons of women spoke up, but it took one guy to do it. But that's the way it is right now. And honestly, everybody here, white people, when you call out police brutality, your voice is heard a lot louder than my voice is heard. You know? I've spoken to white people, and after about 5 seconds, you can tell they're like, you know, they hear the black noise. It's like, yeah, you're talking about racism again. But, you know, if a white person says it, it's like, oh, really? Like, you really? You're calling it out? Then they listen. You actually have the power to change these things. And, you know, Chris Rock has a great thing about, like, Barack Obama being president. Like, oh, isn't it great you guys have made so much, black people made so much progress that there's a black president? He's like, no. We didn't make the progress. White people made the progress in accepting a black president. There have been plenty of black people that were capable of being president in the past, but it's just never, like, in a million years would let a black person be the ruler of the free world. So I applaud you, white people, for coming to this and hearing this. And here's the thing. I'm not here to make you feel guilty. This is the thing. I just moved to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I'm a northern boy. And moving down to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and seeing the local newspaper, this guy wrote in the local newspaper, and he was like, he was a very angry older white man who was saying he was sick and tired of the black community making white people feel guilty over police brutality. And so I did a comic strip saying you shouldn't be blaming the black community for making you feel guilty. You should blame your eyes, your brain, and your heart. Because when you see something like that, you actually, your brain and your heart and your eyes make you feel bad because you see that it's bullshit and you are feeling bad about it. And that madness that you feel is actually your humanity. And the question is, what are you going to do with that feeling? Are you going to work to remedy this and change justice? Or are you going to write a silly op-ed to a local newspaper saying how black people are making your tummy hurt? And one last thing I want to say about Black Lives Matter. If you see a bumper sticker sitting on my car that says, "Save the rainforest," it doesn't mean I'm saying, fuck the other forests. It means the rainforests are getting cut down very quickly, and there's a big problem with that. I care about the other forests too, okay? So when you see Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean, oh, we don't care about anybody else. It means shit is happening to black people in ways that ain't happening to you guys. So I would say that the next time you see Black Lives Matter, think about it. Think maybe, just maybe, that there's a point there, okay? Because this has been going, I've been doing comics for 25 years. 25 years, and it has not changed. The only thing difference now is everyone has the cameras. So we're seeing it. But that first time I saw it, 1992, with Rodney King, that one police chief from San Jose, he put it best. He's like, this is not the first time that this has happened. This is the first time they've been caught. That's it. That's it. So I thank you for listening, and stick around for the Q&A, okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sorry I was so long. I'm sorry. You know what? They fed me before I came here, so I felt like a bloated cow sitting up there. I'm usually like bouncy, but thank you.
Well, I've got some good questions for you, but I know that our audience does as well. So I'll throw a couple of them out there. Earlier this year, 12 people were killed in the offices of Charlie Hebdo, the French satirical weekly newspaper, primarily because of the paper's depiction of the Prophet Muhammad. Have you ever been frightened about publishing your work? What did you think when you watched this transpire in January? Should certain topics be off limits?
Well, my whole thing with sort of, I don't draw things to incite, or I do it because I have some sort of angle on it. And so I'll sit there and go, okay, like, can I add a perspective to this that I haven't seen that may make a good point or something like that? And I just don't see the idea of I think those original cartoons from that first magazine, not Charlie Hebdo, but
The Danish
magazine, they were deliberately like saying, like, let's see if we can find somebody to draw Muhammad, because we know it'll piss people off, which I don't see the point in that. And so, for me, I mean, it was devastating to see colleagues, be taken out like that. But I've sat on stages with cartoonists who have had to leave their country because their government was going after them because they did cartoons that were anti-government or criticized a certain politician. So what we have to deal with here in the USA is like nothing compared to what people deal with overseas. So I've gotten threatened by some gun people. I've gotten, threatened by patriotic people after 9/11, just questioning about going into Iraq and stuff. But I never really felt like, oh no, like I shouldn't do this. I've never really been. I have it easy compared to most.
Well, and you've received a number of awards, including this year an NAACP History Maker Award. However, you also spent a few years as a Michael Jackson impersonator. If we want to lighten the mood a little bit, you were like a sought-after Michael Jackson impersonator.
I was sought after in the greater Boston area, which means there were 3 towns that wanted me to come and dance at their kids' party. That's it. And this was 1984. Michael Jackson was still black, and he ruled and he ruled the world. And I had the best paying job that I ever had, $75 an hour, but I could only do it for an hour.
So one more question from one of our students, Mallory, who's in the class that you met today. She said that the comic that the K Chronicles, was meant to shed light on the post-racial society in the U.S., and you had a comic involving a black man being lynched and asking, I don't think we saw this one tonight, you're doing this because I'm black, aren't you?
Oh, no, I did show that, yeah.
That's right, it was at the beginning. With a white man responding, see, there you go again, pulling the race card. So your comics are addressing issues of race in a very visible way, which makes many people a little uncomfortable.
Which is perfectly not natural, by the way. Like, for some reason, we've grown up now in a culture of you're not supposed to ever feel uncomfortable. Like, we have a drug for that. Like, every pharmaceutical company has come up, oh, do you feel awkward at parties? Here, take this drug. Like, it's okay to feel different emotions. It's okay to feel awkward. This is a talk that is awkward. It's okay to talk about sex and just finding out what a person wants. It's an awkward conversation, but it's the right thing to do.
The human condition is awkward.
Yes. So, like, the idea, we just had this discussion online, which is this school discussion where there was this haunted cornfield down in the South. Like, they have a lot of haunted cornfields in Halloween. And on their page is like this blonde woman, and out of the corn stalks is a black woman grabbing her. And so
I was like, well, I'm not going to that. I'm not going to that. And it came up on the website, and like a lot of parents were like, oh, this is like bad, like bullshit racist imagery, and so a lot of them didn't want to come. And then this woman wrote and said, oh, thank you for spoiling my day. Like, she's like, thank you. I was just having a good day working, and now you're spoiling it by bringing race into it. And it's just like, sorry, sorry. Like people are on Facebook taking pictures of their meal. I'm posting a thing saying like, this bullshit needs to stop. And people are like, oh, don't do that.
And before I open up the audience, I just wanted to point out that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, that in class today you mentioned that the only couple of times that you've been sort of censored or edited was from more liberal white papers in California.
Yeah,
because it was more about the white audience being offended.
Yeah. I literally had editors say to me, we have a white liberal readership, and we do not want to offend them, for a comic that I did. And I just thought it was the weirdest thing that I ever had someone say to me. And it's like, it really is the reason why this conversation with race has taken so long to start to happen. Is it's all about making white people comfortable. Like, as soon as white people aren't comfortable about it, the conversation stops. And that's got to change. Like, it's okay to feel uncomfortable. This is a new thing. Years from now, you'll be able to talk about it. And it's like, oh, remember we used to have trouble talking about this stuff? You'll be able to look back on it and just have a laugh, because we have finally gotten to a place where we can be open and talking about it. So I think it's super important for us to be able to do that. And it's little tiny steps before we take the big steps.
Well, and that's kind of what we're trying to do here. So I really thank you for being here. Let's open it up to, I think we've got time for a couple of questions from the audience. So any questions? Yes.
Have you found in your cartoons that making a cartoon lightens the impact that you're trying to do? Something like a comedian using humor or a joke to make something like, have you ever had a pushback of that this venue of cartoons is making it, this subject, this very important subject, and then somebody can laugh at all?
Yeah. Well, I get pushback, but I also, this is what I do. And I try to use humor, but not all my cartoons are funny. And I think a lot of people who are raised on Garfield just think like cartoons should be ha-ha. And cartoons don't need to be ha-ha. They can move you in any way, shape, or form. So I was talking at dinner about how I did one about a woman I witnessed try to commit suicide by standing in front of a train. And it's one of the most powerful comics I ever did. And has nothing to do with joking around or anything. But cartooning has a way of it's just a great combination of illustration and text that you can convey certain emotions and things with these symbols and with these words and lines. And humor does make some of the more difficult subjects go down a bit easier. We are the court jesters of modern day time, and we probably get paid the same amount as court jesters.
Let's take one more question from the audience. Yeah.
What's your proudest comic? The one you're most proud of?
The one I'm most proud of.
The comic that you're most proud of publishing.
I know. I don't necessarily have one that I'm most proud of. I mean, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell one is really cool. The stuff that I do homages to people who influenced me in the past. I don't know. I like cartoons too, where I just didn't have an idea, and then suddenly I came up with wow, just this cartoon came out of nowhere type of thing, like really weird ones I enjoy. There's certain ones that probably I enjoy and nobody else enjoys, but there's all these different, I don't have one particular one that stands out. But this is the great thing about cartooning, though, and I always tell this to people who are just starting out in cartooning. Cartooning is like baseball, whereas you can make the Hall of Fame by getting a hit every 3 times that you're up. So you don't have to get up there and swing for the fences every time you put pen to paper. There are going to be times when you're inspired and you're right on and you're hitting things, and then there's other times where you're hitting a single, or and then you might be lucky and hit a double, and every once in a while you hit a home run, and every once in a while you hit a grand slam. And the great thing about it, just like baseball, is people remember the grand slams. Because I have people who come up to me and said, I remember you did this strip, and it's like from 15 years ago. And they continually read my stuff because they saw that one strip. And it reminds me of baseball. And once I heard that, I was, doing 9 deadlines a week wasn't so frightening anymore. So it just got a lot easier. I just want to, there's one more person back here who wanted to ask a question.
Okay,
So
one more question, but before we do that, I just want to mention, before you leave, we're going to be selling the book of your comics.
Yeah,
as
this
well as
includes a
prints.
lot more of my police brutality cartoons that weren't in the slideshow, and it's got commentary and stuff.
As well as some prints and other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's open it up to one more question.
Hi, my name is Marcia Henson.
Hi, Marcia.
I am actually a public policy major here at University of Delaware. And I just wanted to, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank
Oh.
you for what you're doing. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your integrity. And thank you for your candidness.
Thank you very much.
A great way
Yeah.
to conclude.
Well, I just want to say this. I sat in the Race in America class today, and honestly, that should be a required class. For anybody who's dealing with the public or dealing with human beings, you should take that class. It's to me, it just makes sense. It's something that we have I remember being in college, and it was a long time ago. And I was trying to do the right thing to show on campus. And literally I had so much pushback, and people were saying, oh, it's gonna start riots and all this stuff. And it's what are you, crazy? I tried to get Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. I tried to get De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, and the Jungle Brothers, and they were all woulda came for $5 grand. And I was being told that it would start a gang war if De La Soul came to campus. And I was just this is driving me crazy. This is driving me crazy.
I think what we're doing on this campus this semester is something to be applauded, and I
Yeah.
appreciate all of you for coming here and for sticking this out. And I do want to plug our next event, which is a week from tonight, The People's Report, which is a documentary about communities, African-American communities in Wilmington. We'll have a Q&A with director Yasser Payne, as well as one of the people that was in the film and is now a doctoral student in sociology here at UD. Thank you so much for coming.
I just have one more thing to say, because I promised I would say this. I always like to teach something that doesn't have anything to do with my slideshow. If you want to win at rock, paper, scissors, does anyone know how to win at that? The secret?
Rock?
No, it's to do the thing that the person just did in the last round. Do the exact same thing, and you will win every time. I swear to you. Do it. Don't do it with anybody in this room right now, but do it tomorrow, or do it when you go back to your dorm. Try it, and just do that thing that they just did, and you will win every time.
All right, great advice. Thank you so much.